My name is Charlotte Miller, and I am 39 years old. I work as a nurse practitioner at a community clinic in Burlington, Vermont. My days are filled with checking vitals, soothing nervous patients, and making sure our little clinic keeps running even when the computers don't cooperate. After every shift, I drive back to our cedar shingle house on North Street, a cozy, two-story home with a blue front door, a creaky porch swing, and old radiators that hum softly through the long winters. Ethan, my husband, is an engineer who works mostly from home. Our 17-year-old daughter, Lily, spends her evenings buried in college prep books, her hair tied up in a messy bun, her headphones tucked in, always humming something faintly happy. And then there's Maple, our golden retriever, who believes her life's purpose is to nap wherever the sunlight lands. 5 years ago, we bought this house for $465,000 after years of saving, and it has become the quiet heart of everything I hold dear. It is where Lily took her first steps into independence, where Ethan built the deck by hand one summer, and where we spent snowy evenings drinking cocoa while the world outside turned white and still. Life was not perfect, but it was honest and warm. Then one afternoon, an ivory envelope with gold lettering appeared in our mailbox, and with it came a shift I didn't see coming. It was an invitation to my younger sister Jenna's wedding. The envelope was thick and elegant, sealed with a pale blush wax stamp that shimmered faintly when I turned it under the kitchen light. The script was beautiful, her fiancé's name printed beside hers like something out of a bridal magazine. But at the bottom, in small print, I saw the words, "Adults only." I read it twice, certain I'd missed something. No exception for family, no note for my daughter. My hands trembled slightly as I held the card. Across the table, Lily was working through calculus problems, a pencil behind her ear, a mug of cocoa cooling beside her. Maple wagged her tail lazily under the counter, unaware that a quiet ache had begun to take root inside me. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about all the little things that had led to this moment, tiny dismissals that had piled up over the years. The time my sister told Lily, "You're too sensitive," when she cried after being left out of a cousin's birthday photo. The Christmas morning when every cousin received matching pajamas except her. The Thanksgiving dinner, when someone joked she wasn't technically part of the bloodline. Each time, I had smoothed it over, made excuses, told myself family was complicated. I had spent years trying to convince myself that love didn't always look fair. But that day, staring at the words "adults only," something in me stopped bending. I wasn't angry, just very still. I folded the card and set it down on the counter. When Ethan walked in, I told him what it said. "She's not invited," I said. "And we're not going." He didn't argue. He didn't tell me to keep the peace or to talk it through. He simply placed a hand on my back and said, "Good. I'll cancel the hotel reservation." Within an hour, the family group chat erupted. My brother Lucas wrote, "It's just the venue rules." My Aunt Sharon added, "Don't make this bigger than it is, honey." My mother's message came last, "Please be flexible for your sister. She's under a lot of stress." I stared at the messages until the words blurred. Then I put the phone face down on the counter. Maple sighed, her paws twitching in a dream. The radiators hissed softly, the house breathing with me. I picked up my phone again and typed a single message. "We love Jenna and wish her a beautiful day. But we will not attend an event that excludes Lily." I muted the chat after that. The screen kept lighting up, a flickering reminder of everyone else's discomfort. But inside, I felt an unexpected calm. That evening, Lily sat beside me on the couch, unaware of the messages piling up. She showed me a photo she'd taken of the lake earlier that week. Gray sky reflected on still water, a single seagull cutting through the frame. "Looks peaceful, right?" she said. I nodded, tracing the photo with my thumb, thinking how peace sometimes looks like still water and sometimes like saying no more. Later that night, my father called. His voice was steady but cautious, the way it gets when he knows he's stepping into a minefield. "Charlie, honey, I think you might be taking this too hard," he said. "Dad," I replied gently, "I'm just standing where I should have stood years ago." He sighed, and I could almost see him rubbing his forehead the way he always did when he ran out of arguments. "Family's about compromise," he said. "Not when the compromise is my child," I answered. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I love you." "I love you too, Dad," I said. "But I'm choosing my family too." When I hung up, I felt tears sting my eyes, not from sadness, but from release. I tucked the wedding invitation back into its envelope and slid it into the drawer where we keep batteries and spare keys. The drawer creaked closed, like the soft sound of a chapter ending. For years, I had told myself that keeping the peace was love. I thought saying yes meant being good, being kind, being loyal. But sometimes peace is simply the absence of noise after you stop explaining yourself to people who never listen. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and pancakes. Lily was laughing at something Ethan said while flipping a pancake that landed half on the plate and half on the stove. For the first time in a long while, I looked around and saw what a real family looked like, imperfect, messy, but whole. The phone buzzed again with new messages, but I didn't check them. I didn't need to. I already knew what they said. Guilt, pressure, justification. It was all predictable. Instead, I walked to the front door and opened it. Cold air rushed in, crisp and sharp. The porch was dusted with a thin layer of snow, untouched and clean. I stood there a moment, breathing it in, the sky pale pink over the rooftops. That's when I made my quiet promise, not just to Lily but to myself. No more spaces where she has to wonder if she belongs. No more explanations to people who choose convenience over compassion. I would no longer measure family by blood or approval, but by presence, kindness, and the way we make each other feel safe. When I closed the door, the blue paint caught the morning light and glowed faintly, soft and strong. This, I thought, is the line. And I will not cross it. The days following my decision not to attend the wedding were a quiet storm, calm on the surface, but full of noise underneath. My phone became a battlefield of notifications. The family group chat that once shared birthday wishes and casserole recipes now carried a steady drum of guilt. Pictures of floral centerpieces, screenshots of seating charts, and notes about a signature cocktail called Summer Grace filled the thread. Every few messages, someone would find a polite way to circle back to Lily. Could she come to the rehearsal dinner at least? Could she stop by for photos after the ceremony? Could she stay at the hotel and join for brunch the next day? Each suggestion came wrapped in the illusion of compromise, but every one of them carved her out like a paper doll missing from a chain. I kept my responses brief. No, thank you for understanding. I hope you all have a wonderful time. There was power in the quiet. My calm unsettled them more than anger ever could. At work, life carried on as usual. I checked blood pressures, ordered flu shots, and held a patient's hand through an asthma flare. My coworker, Denise, noticed I was quieter than usual. "Everything okay at home?" she asked as we filed patient charts. I smiled faintly and said, "Just some family noise." She nodded knowingly, the kind of nod that says been there. During lunch, I opened the shared spreadsheet Ethan and I use for our household budget. We had saved about $1,200 for the wedding, travel, hotel, a gift, and a dress I didn't need but would have bought anyway, just to keep the water still. I moved the money into a new line labeled house projects. Lily's window had a draft we'd been meaning to fix, and the back fence leaned dangerously toward the neighbor's yard. As I adjusted, I realized how often I'd traded our comfort for family appearances. It was more expensive than I'd ever admitted. Every trip, every gift, every smile through clenched teeth had cost me small pieces of peace. A week before the wedding, Jenna called. Her voice had that tight, brittle edge it gets when she's anxious. "It was never about Lily," she said quickly. "The venue has strict rules. You're making this a big deal for nothing." "I'm not making it a big deal," I said quietly. "I'm just choosing not to participate." Her breath caught. "You're punishing me. You know how much stress I'm under. You could have just come and left her home." "I won't leave her out like that." "You're ruining everything," she snapped. "You're jealous, Charlotte. You always have been." That word, jealous, landed like a pebble in an empty jar. It clinked hollow and absurd. I looked out the kitchen window while she kept talking, my gaze falling on the chipped paint on our back steps, the little herb garden Lily had planted in chipped mugs, the soft rain darkening the porch wood. Jealous? Of what? Of a woman so afraid of imperfection she'd ban a child to keep her table balanced? I'm happy for you, Jenna, I said at last. But I won't apologize for protecting my daughter. Her voice sharpened. You've always thought you were better than the rest of us. I've just started thinking we deserve better, I said. Then I ended the call. For a while, I stood by the window, the phone still warm in my hand. Maple barked softly in the next room, chasing some invisible sound. The world outside looked washed clean by rain, and I realized how much lighter I felt. There was sadness, yes, but beneath it, a strange, steady relief. When the wedding day came, it arrived like any other Saturday. The sky over Burlington was soft gray, the kind that turns the lake into glass. Instead of dressing for a ceremony, I flipped pancakes with Lily and Ethan. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the kitchen. After breakfast, we decided to drive by Lake Champlain. Lily cued a playlist she'd made for peaceful mornings and sang under her breath as the water blurred past the windows. We stopped by a small bookstore near the waterfront, the kind that still smells like paper and dust. Lily found a secondhand copy of a poetry collection for $9. The cover was faded, the corners bent, but her eyes lit up like she'd found treasure. I bought it for her and told her every woman should own words that make her feel seen. That afternoon, we came home and painted the window trim in her room. The paint, a soft eggshell white, looked almost too bright at first, but settled beautifully once dry. I watched her brush careful lines near the edges, humming while Maple sprawled on the floor like a golden rug. Every stroke of the brush felt like a quiet act of reclamation. When evening came, Ethan grilled salmon on the back deck. We ate under the string lights he'd hung last summer, the soft glow reflecting off our plates. Maple lay near our feet, content and warm. I didn't think about the wedding, or the dress I didn't wear, or the photos I wasn't in. I thought about the peace of that moment, the sound of Lily laughing, the smell of grilled fish and lemon, the slow rhythm of a life lived honestly. After dinner, Lily went quiet for a while. She stared at the last streaks of pink fading from the sky, then turned to me. "Mom," she said softly, "is it because I'm adopted?" The question hit me like a slow-moving wave. I set down my glass and looked at her. She wasn't crying, just watching me with steady, serious eyes, the same way she'd watched the world when she was 3 and still learning what safe meant. I took her hand. "No, sweetheart," I said. "It's because some people love the idea of family more than the reality of it. They love the picture, not the work it takes to hold it together. You don't fit their picture, and that's their problem, not yours." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I don't want their approval anymore," she said. "I just want peace." Something inside me loosened, like a knot coming undone after years of pulling. I smiled. "Me too," I said. "Me too." We sat there until the stars began to appear, the night air cool against our skin. Somewhere out there, my family was probably dancing under chandeliers, smiling for photos that would be framed and captioned a perfect day. But I didn't envy them. Because for the first time, I wasn't performing love, I was living it. And in that small backyard, under string lights and the steady hum of crickets, I realized that peace isn't found in picture-perfect moments. It's built in quiet choices, in the refusal to let anyone make your child feel less than whole. That night, when I turned off the lights and checked on Lily before bed, she was reading her poetry book. One of the pages was marked with a note she'd scribbled in pencil. It said, "Love is the place that never makes you ask to be let in." I closed her door gently and stood in the hallway for a long while, listening to the steady rhythm of our home. Somewhere beyond it, my old life kept spinning, glossy and loud. But here, in this house, with this child, with this peace, I knew I had finally chosen right. November arrived with gray skies and bare trees, and with it came my mother's annual phone call about Christmas plans. For 10 years, Ethan and I had hosted Christmas Eve in our house on North Street. It started as a way to keep everyone together after my father's health scare, but it gradually became an unspoken duty, one I carried with both pride and exhaustion. I baked cranberry orange bread that cost nearly $30 in ingredients, slow-roasted a beef tenderloin for about $130, and transformed our small living room into a cozy postcard scene. Family would fill every corner of the house, children running around in mismatched socks, adults balancing wine glasses on the arm of the couch, and me in the kitchen, making sure the gravy never separated. But this year, the air felt different. The silence between me and my sister, since the wedding had stretched longer than I expected. I had stopped checking the family group chat altogether. When my mother called that chilly Thursday morning, her voice carried its usual brisk cheer. "So, what's the plan for Christmas?" she asked, as if everything was exactly as it had always been. I paused. For years, my instinct had been to say the same as always. But that phrase no longer fits. "Actually," I said carefully, "we're not hosting this year." There was a small, startled silence on the other end. Then a soft, "Oh." My mother's tone held both surprise and a tinge of disapproval. "Are you sure, sweetheart? Everyone looks forward to Christmas at your place. We can help with the setup if it's too much work." "It's not about the work," I said. "It's just time for a change." She sighed, the kind of sigh that meant she'd add this to a growing list of things she didn't understand about me. "Well," she murmured, "please reconsider." I didn't. I loved my mother, but I loved my daughter more. After the call, Ethan and I decided to use the $1,200 we had saved from the wedding budget for something practical. We bought a new fence panel to replace the one that had been leaning since last spring, sealed the attic to keep the drafts out, and replaced the window in Lily's room, the same one we'd painted together that summer. For the first time in years, our money went toward our own peace instead of family performances. In early December, snow began to fall in steady, whispering flakes. On the first Saturday, we drove to a tree farm in Shelburne. Lily wore a red scarf and carried a thermos of hot chocolate. The trees stood tall and silent, coated in a soft blanket of white. We wandered between rows until she stopped in front of a modest fir that wasn't perfectly symmetrical but had character, sturdy and a little crooked. "This one," she said with a grin. The tag read $68. We tied it to the roof of our car, the cold air biting our cheeks as we laughed the whole drive home. At home, we played old vinyl records and decorated the tree. The ornaments weren't fancy, just sentimental. Paper cranes Lily folded when she was 9, a clay star she made in 7th grade art class, and a small silver bell that had belonged to Ethan's grandmother, who brought it from Europe when she immigrated in 1951. Maple kept stealing the tinsel until Lily finally tied a small red ribbon around her collar. The house glowed with string lights, cinnamon, and the quiet kind of joy that doesn't need an audience. For the first time, I didn't send invitations, reminders, or grocery lists. But the family didn't forget me. The group chat became a steady drumbeat again. Lucas wrote, "Mom says it's not the same without you. Can't you host just this once more?" My Aunt Sharon chimed in, "You're setting a bad tone for the family, dear. People talk." And then Jenna, whose number I had almost deleted, sent a long message accusing me of being cold and vindictive. "You're punishing me for nothing," she wrote. "You've turned into someone I barely recognize." I didn't reply at first. I tried to be gracious, to stay kind. But when she ended her next message with an accusation about what kind of mother I was, something in me finally settled. I blocked her. My hands trembled for a moment, then steadied. The kitchen felt strangely bright. I wiped down the counters, polished the coffee maker, and realized it wasn't anger I felt. It was relief. The kind that comes when you clean away something sticky that had clung to your life for too long. Christmas Eve arrived with a quiet snowfall. For the first time in years, our house wasn't full of people. Instead, it held just us, the family that fit perfectly within its walls. We baked cookies shaped like stars and snowflakes, then made a small plate for our neighbor, Mr. Alvarez. He was 80, lived alone, and walked with a cane. When Lily knocked on his door, he smiled so wide his eyes crinkled. "Your cookies saved me from another frozen dinner," he said, and insisted she take one back for herself. That night, we opened 3 gifts each, a new rule Ethan suggested to keep things simple. He gave me a wool scarf I'd admired weeks earlier. I gave him a paperback mystery novel. Lily gave Maple a plaid bandana that cost $8 but made her look like a proud little soldier. We drank cocoa, watched an old movie, and went to bed before midnight. When I turned off the lights, I stood for a moment by the tree, the room glowing in soft gold and green. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. Christmas morning used to mean chaos, people arriving early, dishes clattering, laughter mixed with complaints. This year, it meant pancakes shaped like stars, a walk by the lake, and a nap on the couch. In the afternoon, Lily and I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and wrote down what we wanted to keep and what we were ready to let go of. She wrote, "Keep the tree farm and the cocoa. Let go of pretending." I wrote, "Keep our porch light on for people who show up with care. Let go of people who want us small." As we finished, my phone buzzed. It was a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Later, when I played it back, her voice was soft. "I miss you," she said. "The house feels different without you. I hope you're well." She didn't apologize, but she didn't need to, not right now. I listened twice, then deleted it. Not from anger, but from honesty. That night, we sat by the fire Ethan built, the snow still falling in slow spirals outside. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "This is my favorite Christmas." And as I looked at the flicker of lights on the tree, I realized she was right. The holiday we kept wasn't loud or crowded. It was small, real, and entirely ours. It fit us perfectly, like a warm house in winter that finally belonged to the people who lived inside. The new year began with fresh snow piled high on the porch rail, the kind that softened every sound. Inside, Maple's paws tapped across the hardwood as I brewed coffee in the quiet kitchen. The house felt still, clean, and warm, a rare kind of peace that comes when you finally stop apologizing for living on your own terms. I bought a new wall calendar for $14, a simple white one with space to write notes beside each day. At the top of January, I wrote 3 words in blue ink. Purpose, peace. Each square on that calendar filled slowly: my clinic shifts, Lily's upcoming college visits, reminders to buy groceries, call Grandma Ruth, and pay the electric bill. Life was ordinary again, and ordinary felt like a gift. The noise from my extended family had faded since Christmas. For the first time in months, I wasn't waking up to guilt-laced texts or thinly veiled accusations. Then, in the second week of January, an email arrived. The subject line read, "Can we talk like sisters?" I knew before opening it that it was from Jenna. Her message began with a long paragraph about stress, about wedding planning, about how she'd felt unsupported, about how her venue's rules had caused more damage than she intended. She called my decision dramatic and said I'd blown things out of proportion. She wrote about herself as though she were the only one who had been hurt. Not once did she mention Lily's name. I read the email twice, slowly, feeling that familiar pull, the old instinct to fix, to soothe, to smooth over jagged edges. But that impulse had cost me too much already. So I drafted a reply that was brief and calm. "I will not be treated like a prop, and neither will my daughter. When you are ready to value her fully, with no exceptions and no tests, we can talk. Until then, I wish you well." I reread it once, took a deep breath, and clicked send. The sound of the mouse felt like the soft click of a door closing. Not slammed. Not locked forever. Just closed to drafts. That afternoon, Lily came home from school, cheeks pink from the cold, her backpack half-zipped. She kicked off her boots and grinned. "Guess what? I joined the poetry club." I looked up from my paperwork, surprised. "Really? That's new." They needed someone to help with the spring open mic. I thought, why not? She hesitated, pulling a folded sheet of paper from her bag. I wrote something. "Want to hear it?" Of course I did. She unfolded the paper, the edges wrinkled from being carried all day, and began to read. The poem was about a porch light, a quiet lake, and a girl who stops asking to be let inside and instead builds her own porch, her own light, her own belonging. Her voice shook a little, but her words were clear. When she finished, she glanced up at me. Is it too simple? The truth rarely needs decoration, I said softly. She smiled, and in that small smile, I saw the woman she was becoming, steady, sure, free from needing anyone's approval but her own. That night, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open to our household spreadsheet. We had $320 left from what would have been our wedding travel and gift expenses. What should we do with it? He asked. Start a fund, I said. Something small for Lily, her senior trip, or maybe a college deposit. He nodded. What should we call it? I thought for a moment, then smiled. The Peace Fund. It sounded a little silly, but it felt right. Money isn't love, but it reflects what we value. And I wanted every dollar in this house to carry peace, not obligation. February arrived with wind sharp enough to sting your face. One evening, my mother called and asked if she could stop by. Her voice was softer than usual. When she arrived, she carried a tin of cookies and looked tired around the eyes. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. I just wanted to see you, she said. It's been too long. We talked about small things at first, the clinic, her new neighbors, the snowstorm that had closed half the roads. Eventually, her voice grew quieter. Families are hard to hold together, she said. Everyone has an opinion. Sometimes appearances are the only thing that keeps people from falling apart. I looked at her for a long time before replying. Families fall apart when people are asked to pretend, I said gently. She nodded, her gaze dropping to her teacup. There was no apology in her words that night, but when she looked up again, her eyes went to Lily, who had just walked into the room. I'd like to come to your poetry reading, my mother said softly. It wasn't an apology, and I didn't treat it like one. It was, however, a door opening a crack, and for once, I didn't rush to swing it wide. She'll let you know the date, I said. After she left, Lily sat down next to me on the couch. Do you think Grandma's really changing? She asked. I think she's trying, I said. Sometimes that's the first step. March brought longer days and slush at the edges of the sidewalks. At the clinic, life stayed busy but steady. Patients came in with colds, sprains, and stories. I found myself smiling more, laughing even. One afternoon, as I drove home, I realized I no longer felt the constant weight of being on edge with my family. Peace had taken root quietly, like early tulips pushing through frozen soil. One evening, I stood at the blue front door and watched the sunset turn the snowbanks pink. Inside, Lily was practicing her poem aloud while Ethan made dinner. Maple snored on the rug. The house felt full, not of noise or chaos, but of belonging. That was when it hit me. The family I used to fight so hard to protect was an illusion. The family I had now was real, alive, whole. When I think about loyalty these days, I don't picture matching pajamas or 4 smiles. I think about that summer night when we grilled salmon under string lights while the world wore tuxedos without us. I think about the fence we fixed, the window we replaced, and the warmth we chose. I think about a 17-year-old girl who asked if she was the reason for a closed door and then decided she didn't need that door at all. I blocked my sister, and the quiet that followed was a blessing. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, tradition, or shared last names. It's defined by who shows up when it matters, who holds the heavy end of the couch, who says your name with care. The story I used to tell myself about family had perfect tables and perfect photos. The story I tell now has a blue front door, a porch light that stays on, and a home that knows what it's for. Here's my ending, simple, quiet, and true. Love is not performance. Love is clarity. Love is a choice made in the bright light of your own kitchen, with a budget spreadsheet open, the dog asleep at your feet, and your daughter smiling at the table, believing you when you say, "You belong here." This year, I didn't chase approval. I didn't beg for forgiveness. I didn't owe. I didn't try to fit into spaces that were never made for us. This year, I chose the real thing. I chose peace. I chose us.